Hi everyone, Miss Pak here from Mirror Lake. Thanks for joining us today. I have something different for us. Are you ready for it? Let's see what our target is. Can you read this with me? Go ahead. I will write an informational paragraph with Miss Pak. That's me. What word do you see that's underlined in the word informational? That's right, the word information. So that means we're going to write about, this time we're going to write about Cesar Chavez, who we learned about yesterday. If you missed the lesson yesterday, don't worry. I'm going to recap it a little bit before we get started. So if you'd like to follow along, go ahead and have a pencil or paper nearby. Okay, so the book we read yesterday was a picture book of Cesar Chavez by David A. Adler and Michael S. Adler. I'm just going to do a quick recap if you were not able to join us. Let's refresh our memories. I'm just going to read a few of these pages. Cesar Chavez grew up during the Great Depression. People everywhere lost their jobs. In 1938, Cesar's parents lost their farm and moved to California. Cesar's father soon found work for the family picking peas. They walked bent over between the rows of plants. For a full hamper, 25 pounds of peas, they earned 20 cents. That's not a lot of money even back then. When the work on that farm was done, the family moved on. They picked string beans, lima beans, broccoli, lettuce, sugar beets, cauliflower, onions, carrots, tomatoes, cantaloupe, watermelon, and grapes. When the farm boss was especially unfair or when work conditions were especially bad, Cesar's father said, "Okay, let's go," and they quit. Cesar Chavez later remembered, "Our dignity meant more than money." So if you joined us yesterday and learned about Cesar, he got it from his dad. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit. In 1944, in the midst of World War II, Cesar Chavez enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He served for 2 years. While on a short leave, he went to a movie theater in Delano, California. If you joined us yesterday, do you remember what happened? Think about that. The theater was segregated. African Americans, Filipinos, and Mexicans were confined to a section to the right. Cesar Chavez felt this was wrong. Do you remember what he did? That's right. He sat on the left side and was arrested. In our own way, Chavez said later, my family had been challenging the growers for some time. Now he was challenging a theater owner. Chavez talked and argued with people and would not give up until they agreed to register to vote. Soon he was hired to start CSO chapters throughout California. In 1958, he went to Oxnard and asked the farm workers there to register and vote. They asked him, "Why is it we can't get any jobs?" The jobs are going to workers from Mexico who accepted lower pay. Chavez organized a march. Reporters came and saw Chavez stand on the hood of a car and speak out to the out-of-work farm workers. After a 13-month struggle, the Oxnard fruit growers gave in and hired local workers. 13 months, that's more than a full year. So, man, he is persevering and he has not given up. Chavez wasn't done fighting for poor farm workers. In August 1970, he called for a boycott of lettuce. Do you remember what boycott was? What that means? That's right. If you said giving something up, that's what a boycott is. And when he refused to end the boycott despite a court order, he was thrown in jail. So, man, that's his at least second time. In 1972, he fasted for 24 days, to protest anti-union laws. Remember, fasted means he was not eating any food. He organized a massive voter registration drive that helped defeat those laws. Chavez knew that poisonous chemicals sprayed on grapevines to keep away insects were injuring farm workers. In 1987, he called for a boycott of all grapes sprayed with dangerous pesticides and fasted for 36 days in support of the boycott. In the years ahead, laws were passed to limit the use of these chemicals. So he definitely stood up for what he believed in. So let's move to our main focus up here. So again, if you don't have your paper or pencil, go ahead and get that if you wanted to join with us today, do some writing. So we quickly just went through a few pages of Cesar Chavez. And we can also do a SWIBS on this, even though it's a literary nonfiction book. Remember, that's a story, but it's a true story. So we do somebody who's the main character, in, where was the setting, wanted, what was their motivation, or what did the main character want throughout the story, but, and it's the big problem that we want to focus on, and then the solution, which is how does the problem get solved? So I had already written one for you, excuse me. Go ahead and read that with me down here. Cesar Chavez in California wanted fair wages or money for farmers, but what was the problem? They were working hard without fair pay. Remember, they weren't getting paid very much and they had to work super hard outside. So what did he do? He protested peacefully, and that brought change in higher pay for farm workers. So it did take some time. It wasn't right away that they found change. And that happened sometimes. It took them over a year, and he fasted for multiple days, 24 days as well, in order for that to happen. So there's just a quick recap. We just completed a SWIBS on that book also. So now I want to take a look at what our goal is for today. So informational writing, if you looked at the target earlier, that just means sharing information or something true with your readers. I bet there's lots of things that you guys know about already, whether you've read it in a book or you've a parent or adult has read that it's something to you that you learned about, or you just know about something already. So go ahead and read the target with me. Ready? I will write an informational paragraph with Miss Pak. Thanks for joining. And again, I underline that word information, just so you know that that's, it helps me remember that that is a fact or something true. So before we even jump into it, because some of you might not have seen this before, but how do we even go about writing an informational paragraph? Remember, if you joined us for the opinion writing, do we just start writing right away? You're right. I hope you said no. Good writers need to plan it out and think about it and organize their thoughts. Even adults should be using a graphic organizer, so we're not just writing, and then say, oh, wait, we made a mistake. This will help us keep it organized so we don't have to keep going back and changing or fixing things. So before we even read what's on here, let's take a look at the colors. Do you notice there's green, yellow, red, green? At one point in the year, some of my students just memorized those color patterns. So they went green, yellow, red, green. It's kind of a pattern, but it's, what does it remind you of? What are you thinking about? If you said stoplights, you are on the right track. So green, what does green usually mean on a stoplight if you're driving or you see it on the streets? Right? That's right. It means go. So when you see green, that means go ahead and start talking about it. So let's take a look at what that is. That's the topic, or who or what is your paragraph going to be about. So it doesn't always have to be a person. We're writing one based on a story about a person. But if you want to write something like teach me about Minecraft or Roblox or something, then you can go ahead and do that. Then what's after green? There's yellow. And what does yellow mean on a stoplight? What does it mean? It means slow down. So we want to slow down and give a detail. So tell your reader what the person or the thing, it doesn't have to always be a person, what it is known for. It can be about an animal too, if you know about animals and want to teach somebody else about that. Then the color, what's the next color? It's red. And what does red mean? Hope you said stop. Red means stop. So that means you stop and explain. So we want to explain that detail here. If you can see my mouse moving. So it says, give specific examples or evidence from the text about the detail. So if you've read about something, or if you just know something in your mind about a video game or how to do something, then this is where you would go ahead and give that example. Then again, there's another yellow. So, hey, slow down and start talking about a different detail, number 2. And then again, there's that red. Stop and explain this detail. So those two go together. And then the last one is green, which is the conclusion. And we want to restate your topic sentence. You're right. If you were with us to do opinion writing, notice that the conclusion, restates the topic just like in an opinion writing. So that's kind of handy that it's kind of similar. So I already have part of this filled out, but can you help me with the first part? So who was Cesar Chavez about? You guessed it. That was easy. It was about Cesar. Notice when I'm filling out a graphic organizer, and actually this is what you can write down if you were wanting to do this on your own, maybe not today, but a different day you're bored and you want to just start writing. You can email me something too, or write it by hand. And then look at the detail. We want to tell the reader about one thing the person's known for. So when I say movie seat, we read about that. Do you remember what that detail was? That's right. He didn't give up his seat. And so we want to stop and explain that a little more. Notice that I'm just using brief words or phrases, and that sometimes that might not make sense right away. But for me as a writer, I understand what this is about. He did not give up his seat because he didn't believe in the segregation. So that's what I would explain here. And maybe I'll just add that word so I remember that that's what I'm thinking about for when I write my complete paragraph. Right now, I'm just filling out this organizer just to organize my thoughts. Something else that Cesar is known for is his protests. That's right. And so I want to stop and give it more of an example instead of just saying, yep, he did this and this and this. I want to stop and give solid examples from the text. Notice, if you could see me, I'm going back in the book. That's not cheating again. That is what good writers do, is they want to go back and make sure they have the correct evidence. And make sure that you don't copy exactly word for word either. I want to write it in my own words. So here's the quick notes that I had down. He didn't eat, and that brought attention to the things that he was protesting. And then here's the conclusion. I want to restate, again, green and green kind of go together. So Cesar stood up for what he believed in. Does that sound good to you so far? Hope you said yes. So we're writing this informational paragraph based on a book that we've read, which is a little different, but we are able to do this. So let's go down here. Notice that I kept the colors green, yellow, red, green, so that you could see the pattern from up here. Whoops, sorry. The graphic organizer. Now I'm just writing this into complete sentences. So for example, here's move that up for you. Cesar Chavez was a hard worker who stood up for what he believed in. So I copied that sentence. I made that up. Notice that I can't just write Cesar movie seat didn't give up seat segregation. That's not a paragraph. So now I'm just using for the topic sentence that I'm writing into a complete sentence. Then what's after green? Yellow. And I noticed I had movie or seat up here. So now I'm putting that into a complete sentence. When Cesar went to a segregated movie theater, that also means separated, he decided to sit on the opposite side. So again, instead of moving on right away, I want to explain to my readers what that is. So that's where the red stop comes from. He believed it was wrong to be segregated and chose to sit on the side he wasn't supposed to sit at and was arrested because of it. So notice how my detail right here, or my explain, really explains this detail. So those two go together. The yellow, I'm slowing down, and then red, stop and discuss it. Then another detail is that Cesar stopped eating as a form of protest. He didn't eat for 25 days because he wanted higher wages for farmers. So again, I'm explaining this detail a little more. If you wanted to challenge yourself, I would recommend in the explain parts in the red to use several sentences for that. You can explain this a little more. You can show how you're feeling. Like, for example, in here, he didn't eat for 25 days because he wanted higher wages for farmers. And you could put, oh my goodness, that is a long time. I don't know that I would be able to do that. So in the red part, that's where you can expand your thinking. Or if you want to challenge, is to make your paragraph a little longer and more meaty, that would be a great place to do it. And then again for the green, in conclusion, go ahead and read that with me, please. Cesar never gave up and inspired others many years later. So notice I didn't copy exactly what I had in my organizer, and that's okay too. But I'm using the graphic organizer for my thoughts, and then I'm using that exactly. If we had two papers about this, if we were in class together, I would have had, make sure students, you guys have this right next to you while you're writing your actual paragraph. Because we don't want to spend all this hard work on organizing our thoughts and then just make up our own. That wouldn't make sense. We already did the hard thinking and organizing what we wanted to write about and put it in order and made it follow these colors. So that's something you can do as well. Let's take a look at the colors one more time. Can you say those with me? So first it's green, yellow, red, green. I dare you to close your eyes and not look at this and say it again. Can you picture it? Ready, go. I'm closing my eyes. Green, yellow, red, green. Nice job if you were able to do that. I know for some of you, this might be a refresher or a reminder, like you already knew how to do this, but for some of you, this might be brand new. So after taking this organizer and putting it into a complete paragraph, first of all, big applause for you if you were actually doing this and following along at least. Maybe you weren't writing, but you did follow along with me. We just did a complete paragraph. That's amazing. We took our words, our short words or phrases, and then put those into complete sentences. And man, this is a solid paragraph we wrote. Awesome job. So down here, I encourage you all, if you're seeing this is what you guys can write down. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and pause. If you're watching on TV, sorry, you better get started writing quick. I encourage you to write your own informational paragraph using the organizer, the topic, detail, explain, conclusion. If you'd like a challenge and you're an older student right now, hi, thanks for joining in. You could always add another detail, so have 3 details and then have a third explain. Just remember, anytime you're talking about a detail that you want to explain it. Do you remember where I asked you to add more if you wanted a challenge? That was, again, yep, you're right. If you said explain, that is a perfect spot, again, to give, add a couple more sentences if you wanted, or a few more sentences to really explain that, and then also hear your perspective in it. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe blah, blah, blah. But you can have fun with it. Awesome job doing this today. You just learned about informational paragraph. Way to go, guys.
Welcome back, math problem solvers. Thank you for joining me again. I'm glad you're with me. We are continuing our conversation from last time about the distributive property. So last time we were talking about a strategy that we can use for breaking apart a factor in an original multiplication problem into 2 smaller numbers and kind of chunking that original equation into two easier, smaller equations, adding those products together, and that's a strategy we can use to find the answer to the original problem. So that's what we went over last time. And here's a poster I made to kind of review. So distributive property just means when we're solving a harder fact, we can break apart one of the factors and we can solve two easier facts, add the products together, and that tells us the answer to the original fact. So here's an example. We have 9 times 3, and 9 is a bigger factor, so we could break that one apart. Remember, when we're using distributive property, we're only breaking one of the factors. So you'll notice that over here, I broke the 9 into 5 and 4, but we're still multiplying each of those by 3. The 3 doesn't change. So we can break 9 times 3 into 5 times 3 and 4 times 3, and we could solve each of those smaller parts, add them together, and get the answer to the original problem. So that's what distributive property is all about. And that's what we worked on last time. Today, we're going to do some review of distributive property, and then we're going to look at some of the other properties we learned this week and try out some story problems using those properties and what we know about them to get the answers. And warm up with this problem to review what we learned last time for distributive property. So it says, find 5 times 6 by breaking apart 6. Show how you broke apart 6 on the array. So once you think about how you're going to break apart 6, that factor 6, then they want you to draw a line to split the array in the same way that you broke the 6 apart. So I'll give you a second to think about that and figure out how you could break the 6 apart and rewrite this as two different expressions, multiply by 5, add those together and get a total. And just take about maybe 3 or 4 minutes to try this out, and we'll go over the answer in a second. One of the ways you could have done this, because there's more than one possible way to break apart 6. So I thought about breaking apart 6 into 3 and 3. And in the original array, it had 5 rows of 6. So since I was breaking the 6 apart into 3 and 3, I drew a line down the middle of the array so that instead of having 5 rows of 6, I have 5 rows of 3 over on this side and 5 rows of 3 on the other side of the array. And now I can think about what 5 times 3 is equal to, which would be 15. So 5 times 3 plus 5 times 3 is the equivalent of 15 plus 15, and that would equal 30. So 5 times 6 is equal to 30. I could have also broken 6 apart into 2 and 4 and figured out what 5 times 2 would have been, and then 5 times 4. And I know 2 5s is 10. And 4 5s would be 20. So that's another nice way to do it, because then we're thinking about easy numbers to add. 10 plus 20 is equal to 30. So think about how you broke apart the 6 and just check and make sure that you broke it apart and still multiplied each of those smaller numbers by 5, and then just checking to see that you added correctly. I know you might not have had this array to draw a line on, but maybe just a way to visually think about how you could break it apart. So that was just to review from last time what we learned. And now we'll get to today's learning target. Target is, hopefully you will be able to use the properties of multiplication, the rules that we've learned and practiced this week, to solve word problems. So today we are going to look at 3 word problems that each are an example of a problem that connects to one of the properties we learned this week. And I'll give you a chance to try solving the problems, and then we'll go through the answer together for each one. And on this screen, I just have a review of what each property means and what those rules are. And then next to them, an example. So just a reminder, commutative property is all about switching around our factors. And just reminds us that the total would be the same if we're multiplying those same two factors, no matter what order they go in, our answer or product will always be the same. Associative property is just reminding us that if we have three numbers to multiply, we can choose what order those numbers go in, and we can group them in any way we want. So we can multiply whichever two factors we want to first, and then multiply that by the last factor remaining. And then on the distributive property, we quickly just looked at a review problem for is just reminding us how we can break apart one factor into two smaller factors to solve a harder equation. So for the next part of today's lesson, I want you to get some practice and review with these properties and apply them and use them to solve some different word problems. So I have 3 word problems, one that connects to each of the 3 properties that I have taught you this week. And I will read the story problems aloud to you. We'll go through the numbers that are important for you to think about, and then I'll give you a couple minutes for each problem to think about it, try it out. So if you need to grab something to write with and something to write on, go ahead and grab those things now, and we'll get started with the first word problem. First word problem that we're going to look at and think about, or that you are going to look at and think about, the problem says, Chad reads books at the library each week for 6 weeks. He reads 3 books each week. Mia reads books at the library each week for 3 weeks. She reads 6 books each week. Who reads more books at the library, Chad or Mia? So it says Chad reads 3 books each week for 6 weeks. Mia reads 6 books each week for 3 weeks. Hopefully you're thinking about one of the properties we learned this week that teaches us about the order of our factors. And I'm going to ask you to think about which property or rule we learned that we can use to help us solve this, and give you just a couple minutes to solve this on your own. Okay, so did you figure out which property we were thinking about? Hopefully you remembered we were thinking about the commutative property, and it's okay if you didn't remember the name of the rule, but I was hoping you at least remembered that we learned this week that we can switch our factors around in an equation and our answer will be the same. So for my work shown here, I have Chad 6 times 3 is equal to 18. Mia 3 times 6 is also equal to 18. So they both read the same number of books. Problem. In this word problem, it says, Joelle bought 2 boxes of bananas for her ice cream shop. Yum. There are 8 bunches in each box. And there are 5 bananas in each bunch. How many bananas did Joelle buy? So be careful when you're reading this problem that we don't miss any important information. We know that she is buying 2 boxes of bananas. We know there are 8 bunches of bananas in each box. And it also tells us that she has 5 bananas on each of those bunches. So those are our 3 numbers in the problem. Think about which property we learned this week that could help us with this one, and try solving on your own. We'll go over the answer in a moment. So here is an example of how you could have worked this problem out. One way, there might have been a different way you did the problem, but the main thing I was hoping for is that you figured out we could use associative property, which was the rule we learned this week for how we can multiply 3 numbers, 3 factors. Because in this problem, we're thinking about 2 boxes of bananas, times 8 bunches of bananas times 5 bananas on each bunch. So we're multiplying 2 times 8 times 5. But remember, associative property says we can move those factors around and multiply them in any order we want to. And so when I saw the 5 and the 2, I thought about how I know 5 times 2 or 2 times 5, and that's a fact that I feel comfortable solving in my head. So I went ahead and decided to rewrite the equation as 2 times 5 times 8 and solve 2 times 5 as my first step. And when I did that, I thought about how 2 times 5 is like adding 5 plus 5, or 2 5s, which I know makes 10. So then my last step was just to multiply 10 times 8, and I can use skip counting by tens to solve 10 times 8. So I just counted by tens 8 times, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and I figured out that Joelle bought 80 bananas. It's okay if you did it in a different way or moved your factors in a different order. Just check and make sure you still got the same answer of 80 bananas. Problem for today. So in this problem, hopefully you're thinking about the other property we learned this week that we just practiced and learned about yesterday. I'll read the problem to you, and just like with the other two problems, you can take a few minutes to try solving it on your own after I've read it, and then we'll go over the answer. So this one says, there are 9 rows in Mrs. Mitchell's flower garden. Remember, a row is just a line going straight across. So this must mean that she's planting her flowers in rows or lines in her garden. Each row has 9 flowers planted in it. How many flowers are planted in the garden? Use an equation to show one way to break apart one of the factors and solve the problem. Explain your thinking. So just make sure you're showing all of your work, and we'll go over the answer in just a moment. For you to get ready to check your last answer, and I haven't actually finished writing the answer in on the screen because I wanted to talk a little bit about how I thought through this problem. First of all, since it told us to make sure we break apart one of the factors, and we know we're thinking about 9 rows with 9 flowers in each, so our original equation is 9 times 9. I broke the 9, one of the 9s, into 5 and 4. Whenever I can break apart a factor into 5 and another number, I usually do because I know how to count by 5s. It's a strategy I can use. So in this case, we can break it into 5 times 9 plus 4 times 9. To solve 4 times 9 or figure out what 4 nines is equal to, I used repeated addition. So I added 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9. I added 9 4 times. And once I did that, I got an answer of 36. For 5 times 9, like I said, I can count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So I stop when I have 9 fingers up. So 5 times 9 is 45. And there's another strategy for solving a times 9 fact that can be helpful. So just a quick mini lesson on how to do that. You can solve times 10. So I could think about what 5 times 10 is equal to, and then take away a group of 5. So 5 times 10 would be 50, and then 50 take away 5. I would still get the answer of 45. Just another trick for when we're solving a times 5 fact. Excuse me, times 9 fact. So now to get my final answer, I just need to add 45 plus 36 together. And when I'm adding numbers like this, sometimes it's easier to add my tens. So 40 plus 30, which is 70. Add my ones, 5 plus 6, which equals 11. And then I can add those two totals, 70 plus 11. So 9 times 9 would be equal to 81. This was a tricky problem, so it's okay if you didn't get that answer or we're still in the middle of working on it. Just know that the most important part of this strategy is figuring out how you can break apart one of those factors to put it into two a little bit easier facts to solve. So that was all for our review today. Today's lesson was really a review just to practice and go over those different properties or rules for multiplication that we learned about this week. We are going to next week move into working on becoming more fluent with our multiplication and division facts. And being fluent with our facts kind of means we can use all these different strategies consistently. We can even start to remember the answers to some of our multiplication and division equations just by practicing them over and over again. And that's the goal for third grade math thinkers, is to really know our facts by the end of the year so that when we're solving easy multiplication and division facts, it gets us ready for more challenging multi-digit multiplication and division problems that we'll see in fourth and fifth grade and beyond. So thanks for practicing today, working on those word problems with me and reviewing those properties that we learned this week: commutative property, associative property, and distributive property. And I can't wait to see you next week when we'll get more practice getting fluent with multiplication and division. Take care and have a great weekend.
Hola niños y niñas, soy yo la maestra Lorena Vázquez y continuamos esta semana con nuestro aprendizaje sobre la multiplicación y sus propiedades. Y como recuerdan, ya hemos aprendido que el orden de los factores no importa. 4 por 6 es lo mismo que 6 por 4. Tampoco importa cuando tenemos más de dos factores. Por ejemplo, si yo multiplico 5 por 7 por 3, puedo multiplicar en la orden que se me antoje y que se me facilite más y el producto será el mismo. También ayer estuvimos estudiando sobre cómo descomponer o separar en partes factores para poder multiplicar más fácil. Y hoy continuamos con esa idea de descomponer números, pero lo vamos a aplicar a la división, porque esa estrategia sí funciona para dividir y multiplicar. ¿Están listos? Entonces, vamos a continuar. Bueno, niñas y niñas, vamos a comenzar con el trabajo que les dejé de ayer para resolver. Entonces, el problema decía, Georgina tiene 3 paquetes de marcadores. Cada paquete tiene 4 marcadores. ¿Cuántos marcadores tiene Georgina? Si recuerdan, les dejé que había 3 grupos de a 4 en cada grupo. Entonces, yo ya les he dicho en el pasado que a mí me gusta tener una representación visual. Entonces, aquí tengo yo los paquetes de marcadores, un paquete, 2 paquetes, 3 paquetes. Y ayer estábamos hablando de descomponer, separar en partes los factores o los grupos para poder multiplicar más fácilmente. En este caso, yo no me he aprendido la tabla del 3 o del 4, entonces, ¿qué puedo hacer? Muy fácilmente podemos descomponer uno de los números. Así que voy a empezar. Para mí se me hace más fácil descomponer el 4, porque yo sé que 4 viene siendo 2 más 2. Entonces, ¿cómo se vería mi matriz si lo cambio para que fueran 2 en cada grupo en vez de 4 en cada grupo? Entonces, voy a remover de cada grupo 2, 2 y 2. Vieron que la cantidad de marcadores no cambió. Mi producto va a ser el mismo. Simplemente lo estoy haciendo más fácil. ¿Por qué? Porque sé que tengo 3 paquetes, eso no ha cambiado, y hay 4 en cada paquete, simplemente que los he separado. Así que, ¿cuál sería nuestro nuevo problema? Sería el siguiente. Aquí tenemos 2, 2, 2, 3 filas, 3 grupos, 3 grupos de 2, 3 por 2. ¿Y cuántos hay en total aquí en estos 3 grupos de 2? 2, 4, 6. Tenemos 6. Mi marcador no me está funcionando muy bien. Okay. Así que, ¿cuántos tenemos aquí en la primera? Tenemos 2, 2 y 2. Entonces, tenemos 3 grupos de a 2. Y yo sé que para la tabla del 2 puedo contar de 2 en 2. Entonces, tengo 2, 4, 6. En esta otra fila también tengo 2, 2 y 2. Entonces tengo 3 por 2 igual a 6. ¿Vieron que no tuve que contar? Lo pude hacer en mi mente. No tuve que contar uno por uno. Sí conté de 2 en 2. Pero el resultado ahora viene siendo 6 más 6. Y 6 más 6 son 12. Así que, niños y niñas, 3 por 4 también son 12. Y si aún te queda alguna duda, puedes contar los marcadores uno por uno. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Y así es como descomponemos o separamos en parte los factores para poder multiplicar. Vamos a continuar con la lección de hoy. Hoy estamos aprendiendo todavía el orden de agrupación para multiplicar. Puedo descomponer números para dividir fácilmente. Niños y niñas, descomponer es muy importante. Estamos dedicando 2 lecciones porque lo podemos hacer al dividir y multiplicar. Así que hoy también será nuestra palabra del día, descomponer. ¿Qué quiere decir separar en partes? Practiquen conmigo. Descomponer, descomponer. Separar las partes. Muy bien. Sus materiales, como siempre, un lápiz y un papel, una pizarra con marcador, cualquier cosa que les pueda ayudar visualmente, crear las matrices para multiplicar y dividir. Bueno, el día de hoy dividir. Entonces, todo lo que ustedes necesiten pueden tenerlo al alcance y pueden trabajar conmigo. Vamos a comenzar. Vamos a empezar con el problema 15 dividido por 3. Ahora, yo sé que 15 es el dividendo. ¿Recuerdan esa palabra? Dividendo. Pero no sé dividir aún muy bien. No sé cómo hacerlo. Entonces, ¿qué puedo hacer con este dividendo? Lo que puedo hacer es descomponer, separar las partes. El número lo voy a hacer en un problema más fácil porque yo puedo hacer grupos equitativos, ¿verdad? Recuerden que dividir es repartir igualmente las cantidades, ¿verdad? Si yo tuviera 15 lápices y 3 amigos a quien darle esos lápices, puedo ir darle uno y uno a cada uno para saber cuánto les toca a cada uno. Pero ¿cómo lo puedo hacer si no tengo esos lápices y estar contando? Vamos a descomponer. Entonces, 15. Yo sé que 15 es lo mismo que 9 más 6. ¿Están de acuerdo conmigo? 9 más 6. Entonces voy a escribir este problema de una manera diferente. Voy a escribirlo 9. Voy a usar dos colores. El 9 lo voy a hacer así. 9 dividido por 3, porque no podemos olvidar que todavía estamos buscando repartir equitativamente. 9 dividido por 3. Y el segundo problema, el 6 del 15, voy a hacer 6 dividido por 3. ¿Vieron cómo ahora puedo hacerlo más fácilmente? Si yo tengo 9 lápices y los estoy dividiendo en 3 partes iguales, simplemente puedo hacer un dibujo. O si yo ya me aprendí mi tabla del 3, puedo decir, bueno, 3 veces voy a contar hasta llegar a 9. 3 más 3 más 3. Pero vamos a decir que no. Voy ahora a hacer una representación visual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Aquí tengo 9 y voy a dividirlo en grupos iguales de a 3. Entonces, un grupo, 2 grupos, 3. 9 dividido por 3 es 3. Así que esa es la primera mitad de nuestro problema. Ahora también tengo 6 dividido por 3. 6 dividido por 3, lo puedo ver aquí, 9 dividido por 3. Aquí tengo estos 6. Miren. 1, 2. El resultado es 2. Entonces, ¿qué tengo que hacer ahora para saber cuánto es 15 dividido por 3? ¿Verdad? Porque aquí tenía 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Y descubrí que eran 2 grupos. Ahora tengo los 15, ¿verdad? Y para no confundirnos, voy a quitar el color rosita de este lado. Muy bien. Entonces aquí tengo los 9 dividido en 3 grupos y los 6 dividido en 2 grupos. Lo que tengo que hacer para encontrar el resultado simplemente es sumar los cocientes. Este 3 más este 2. Así que ahora sé que 3 más 2 son 5. Mi respuesta es 5. 15 dividido por 3 son 5. ¿Pudieron ver? Los 3 grupos y los 2 grupos hacen 5. Y así es como puedes descomponer, separar las partes. El dividendo o el total para poder ayudarte a dividir más fácilmente. ¿Quieren intentar uno más? Vamos a hacer uno más juntos. Muy bien. Bueno, aquí tenemos otro problema que podemos resolver. Vamos a ver 40 dividido por 5. ¿Por qué no vamos a descomponer? Descomponer. Separar las partes. Excelente, separar en partes el dividendo, que viene siendo este número, el 40. Yo sé que puedo descomponer, muy bien, 40 en 20 más 20. 20 más 20. De esa manera puedo escribir ahora dos problemas de multiplicación y al final podemos sumar los cocientes o las respuestas. Así que vamos a ver cuáles serían nuestro nuevo problema. El primero sería 20 dividido por 5. ¿Y qué creen? Como es 20 más 20, el segundo sería la misma cosa. El segundo sería 20 dividido por 5. También. Así que solo tenemos que resolverlo una vez. Eso corta mi trabajo en la mitad. Entonces me gusta. Así que 20 dividido por 5. Voy a hacer 20 es mi dividendo, así que ese es mi total. Vamos a decir y hacer una matriz. ¿Recuerdan la matriz cómo va? 20 es mi total dividido en 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Muy bien. Y voy a contar equitativamente hasta llegar a 20. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 y 20. ¿Recuerdan cómo hicimos eso anteriormente? Claro, cuando estamos dividiendo, contamos hasta llegar hasta nuestro total y siempre teniendo en mente que tenemos que repartir en partes iguales. Así que ya pudimos descomponer, separar las partes. El 40 en 20 más 20. ¿Cuántos grupos iguales tenemos? Así que tenemos 5 y en cada grupo tenemos ¿cuántos? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Niños y niñas, 20 dividido por 5 son 4. ¿Y qué creen? 20 dividido por 5 otra vez también es 4. Entonces, para encontrar nuestro cociente o la respuesta, simplemente tenemos que sumar estos dos cocientes, el 4 y el 4. Los tenemos que sumar. Así que 4 más 4 son igual a 8. ¿Vieron cómo lo pude hacer? En vez de dibujar 40, que era mi dividendo originalmente, lo pude cortar en la mitad y solo hacer 20. Y cuando ya sea más experta en mis tablas de multiplicación, quizás no tenga que dibujar nada porque yo ya sé que 20 dividido en 5 grupos iguales me da 4. Muy bien. Entonces 40 dividido por 5 son 8 en total. Y recuerden, la operación de multiplicación con la de división son operaciones inversas. Quiere decir que tienen una relación. La semana que viene vamos a tocar un poquito en eso. Vamos a continuar. Como es de costumbre, quiero dejarles con un problemita para que ustedes puedan practicar, porque recuerden que la práctica hace el maestro. Y recuerden que la orden de agrupación no importa, así que este es el ejemplo a resolver. Vamos a leerlo juntos. Aquí va. Alex tiene 24 dulces. 24 dulces tiene Alex. Perdón, 24 dulces. Él quiere repartirlos equitativamente, quiere decir por partes iguales, entre sus 3 amigos. Qué generoso es Alex. ¿Cuántos dulces le tocan a cada amigo de Alex? Entonces, vamos a empezar. Para empezar, sabemos que cuánto es nuestro dividendo. ¿Cuántos dulces tenemos en total? Claro, si tú dijiste 24, tienes toda la razón. 24 es la cantidad que vamos a dividir. ¿Y cómo vamos a repartir esos 24 dulces de Alex? Correcto, vamos a hacerlo entre sus 3 amigos. Así que tenemos 3 grupos. 24 dividido por 3. Si no has aún aprendido cómo dividir y multiplicar tu tabla del 3, que esa es tu pista, lo que vamos a tener que hacer es descomponer, separar las partes. El dividendo, este es el número que hay que descomponer para poder resolverlo. Entonces, quiero que lo intenten, háganlo en casa, en su pizarra, en su tabla, con sus seres queridos y piensen en cómo pueden cambiar ese número para hacerlo más fácil. Okay. Y la semana que entra vamos a ver la respuesta y solo una manera de resolverlo porque hay diferentes maneras de poder hacerlo. Muy bien. Niños y niñas, hemos llegado al final de nuestra lección y de esta semana. Esta semana nos hemos enfocado mucho en aprender las agrupaciones para multiplicar. Y hemos aprendido que el orden de los factores no importa, que también podemos multiplicar los varios factores en órdenes diferentes. Entonces, estos 2 días hemos practicado cómo descomponer, separar las partes para multiplicar y hoy en específico para dividir. Así que recuerden, podemos descomponer el dividendo para luego sumar los cocientes de la manera que haga el problema más fácil. Entonces, no olviden practicar sus tablas de multiplicación, que tienen que aprendérselas. Y próxima semana, familias de datos. ¿De qué se tratará eso? Acompáñenme la próxima semana para averiguarlo. Hasta la próxima y cuídense. Adiós.